welcome back to Souls Wide Open. I am Justin. We love to explore love, truth, and what life looks like when we're pursuing our soul's desires. So I am going to be doing that again today with my dear friend Alyssa Ball. Today we're going to be talking about our belief system, which is this really fascinating part of ourselves that really creates a lot of our events and circumstances in our lives. We're actually going to talk, I think, specifically a little bit more about our belief system and money, which is really fascinating. We both thought that would be kind of a fun topic to dive into. But before I do that, let me just hand it over to Alyssa. I'll let her introduce herself. We just recorded a podcast earlier, so if you haven't checked out that earlier episode, we talked all about vulnerability and intimacy. So you should definitely check that out. But nonetheless, I'd still love to let Alyssa take over and just introduce herself again briefly, and then we will dive into our belief system. Hi, Alyssa.
Yay, thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
Hello. So my name's Alyssa. I'm a self-love coach, trauma-informed yoga teacher, and a holistic health practitioner. And I'm also an intersex activist and human. And today we're going to talk about belief systems because these funny little things that can be our unconscious operating systems in life can dictate everything. So I'm excited to jump into it, Justin.
Yeah, me too. So we both have been so curious in our lives about the beliefs that we have that are creating our circumstances and events. And it's really cool when you get really curious and start owning the fact that these beliefs are creating the life that you're living. And and also how confusing that can be when you think you want one thing, but you keep creating something completely different. And so I'm going to start out here by just talking about the belief system for just a moment so we can get kind of a foundation there, and then we'll talk about the beliefs that we've created throughout our lives and why they are tripping us up, and or that we're getting over, and how they're transforming, and how it's been really just fascinating to experiment with them. So I like to think of the belief system as kind of like an organ of the soul. So it's a part of us that we have been creating and developing since we were first born, or potentially even a little earlier. And basically the belief system, it's not just intellectual, it's emotional, it's energetic. It comes from our experiences and what we have like learned from the world. And everything that gets put into our belief system gets marked as a truth. So we conduct our lives from these truths and we act accordingly to them, whether they actually are truths of the universe or not. And so this is what's really important is our belief system has actually two different categories of truths in it. Okay, so we have universal truths, which are actual truths of the universe, of the world, about ourselves, that are always loving and always accurate. So these are awesome. Like when we actually have these universal truths in our belief system, like great, awesome. They are the parts of our lives that flow easily, that are loving. And when we act from them, good things come. There's also, though, another type of truth that exists in our belief system, which I call an error-based truth, and not like the air around us. I mean error as an ERROR, error-based truth. And I still call these truths because we believe them to be true. So we actually like own them in our soul as a truth, but they're not truth. They're based in error. They're based in falsities. They're based in incorrect information. But this is the problem with them, is that we go through our lives acting like they're a truth of the universe. And so we create all of these issues because we like think this thing should be true and it's not. And so today, Alyssa and I are going to talk about some of the error-based truths that we've been living by that have created our financial and money situations, and how by finally identifying and finally understanding, like, oh my gosh, I've been acting from this error-based truth for so long. No wonder this part of my life is lacking or like not flowing the way I think I want it to. And yeah, and then actually one more quick thing about the belief system that I think is so, so important is that the belief system is not just intellectual. So we can do a lot of mindset work. We can do a lot of like, you know, thinking about and imagining and visualizing the future. And I am all about that. I am a huge, huge fan of using like future memory meditation and like creating your future with your thoughts and your intellectual awareness and desires. But the belief system is not just intellectual, it is also emotional and energetic based. So we have to be willing to also explore that part of our belief system. And if we don't, we're missing out on a total part of our ability to create things or transform our patterns, have different circumstances and events. So I know we're going to talk about that, but I think it's just really important to upfront say that like this isn't just intellectual work, this is emotional or energetic work as well. And so when we can actually look at our belief systems energetically and like where they come from our energy systems and where they exist or where they're blocked there, then we can make huge change, which is really, really cool. All right. Yeah. Anything to say, Alyssa? I'd like to just turn it over to you. I just said a lot of things.
Yeah, no, the belief system that is just like screaming in my face the whole time we were talking is um that I'm working through that I don't think is one that I want to keep is that it's slimy to ask for money for helping people. And I've been asking for money for helping people for 4 years now, and I have so many certifications and trainings and have worked, in all these different realms that would say, yes, you are qualified to charge people money to help them. And yet I sometimes still feel so slimy about it. And I'm trying to like work through accepting that we do deserve compensation and money for helping people and using our, spiritual gifts, so to speak. So I don't know if that like relates to you or if you feel that, if there's any resonance. But yeah, let's talk about money.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's look at that one really quick because that's a great one to start with. So intellectually, there's probably a part of you that's like, you're like, hey, I have these certifications. Hey, like it's normal to charge for money or charge people to work with me, or that's like a normal thing. Um, it's this like there's all these intellectual reasons that you could say to yourself, like, of course this is fine. But it sounds like you're identifying also this icky feeling, which is part of a belief somewhere. There's a belief that goes, it's not really okay. Do you feel like you've identified a little deeper like that ick? Like I know you said like charging people, but is it like your self-worth? Is it because it's one of your gifts? Like what do you think the deeper, more maybe energetic part of this that is like stopping you from feeling totally okay with asking for money?
Totally. So I think that this year I've really let myself be a mess. And I use the term mess in like the most loving and endearing way, but to fully allow myself to process and get deep into my insecurity, that I feel like as a mess, should not be a leader, should not be like charging. You know what I mean? But the truth is like a really empowered, amazing leader does have the capacity to lean into these emotions, and nobody's actually perfect, so it's that like perfectionism mindset that almost wants to keep me from really stepping into my worth and what I know that I'm capable of.
Okay, so there's a belief here. So we could dance around this for years, right? We could be like, no, no, Alyssa, you're totally qualified. You're totally qualified to ask for money. You should ask for money. But then this is where people get hung up. They forget to go a little bit deeper and go, yeah, but I feel insignificant. I feel like I'm not capable of this. And instead of just trying to like crush that down with intellectual thoughts, we need to actually go into the emotional issue there, right? And grieve through or feel the fear of asking for money when you don't feel like you're capable or worthy of it, which is so, so fascinating because if you actually go there and change that part of yourself, right, then you like no longer have this emotional block to asking people for money, which is so cool. And
Yeah.
this is why it's so important to look at our belief systems, not just intellectually, but emotionally too. And yes, I completely relate with this. Like I can totally relate to having the intellectual awareness that like, oh yeah, I like this is my work, but like also like, but I'm asking, it's just me. It's just little old me asking for money. Like that's not okay. I should just do everything for free, or I should just, like give everyone discounts or whatever, because I don't feel worthy of that. But the worthiness is a wound within me about a belief that I have about myself. It's
Hmm.
not actually a universal truth of who I am, right? Okay,
Exactly.
so
Yeah,
cool.
because what's the universal truth? That we all deserve to be abundant, we all deserve to be loved, we all deserve to have our desires spontaneously fulfilled. But the error-based truth is like, no, not me, not me. I'm like, I'm the outlier. I'm, the hot mess express that like doesn't deserve to have that. Maybe everybody else, but not me. So there's like that distinct difference between the examples like you talked about.
Yeah, so what a belief that I had just recently, and I just recently felt myself crack through it, which was really cool, is okay, let me think about how this went. I was feeling like I'm like, okay, I need to like generate more. Like I'm feeling a little bit of like slow and like, man, I just can't really get motivated. Like what's going on? Like really not that excited about some of my work that I normally would be. And I noticed that I was afraid that if I started generating the kind of money or abundance that I was intellectually desiring, so I was kind of putting it out there like, hey, world, like I'm ready to level up in some areas, I'm ready to get going. And this is where, like, I think our intellectual, like, future memory meditation and really going forward with our visions is good because it gets us stretching forward into kind of creating new things, right? So I was doing that. I was like, okay, I'm ready to start creating more. And then I just felt this like shrinking down. And I let myself really emotionally start getting into it. And I started to feel like kind of some fear about getting big and some fear about like growing and all this. And I noticed as I was emotionally processing through it, this really fascinating belief come up that was that if I got too big and too good at taking care of myself, there would be no one around to rescue me. There would be no one around to come and give me things. And this is what's really crazy about this is that I have correlated being given things with love most of my life. Because like let's be honest, we we didn't always receive a lot of love. Okay, I'll just speak for myself, but let's be honest, it's probably pretty general. I didn't receive a ton of love when I was young in the way that really filled me up. But you know what? Like every once in a while I'd be given something, or if I acted right, I'd get a gift, or like, it started to feel like, okay, well, this is one way that these humans around me can show me that they care is by giving me things or rescuing me from moments when I don't have something, when I have lack. I can like reach out and these people will show me that they care by taking care of me, right? Well, guess what? If I am totally self-sufficient and I have plenty of abundance, I instantly sever the ability for these people to show up and give me things. And then I've lost the ability to receive love from them. Now, this is all my air-based shit, right? Like, this isn't truth. This is just air. This is me like totally acting in ways that my 5-year-old self was just trying to make sense of the world and be like, okay, if I stay small, people will gift me things. If I'm ill, if I get injured, if I like any of these things, it's a way that it opens me up to being able to be like seen and loved. So I had to go through grieving about letting go of being rescued because like I have been willing to hold myself back to leave the potential for people to show up and love me. Like holy shit, what? I've literally thought that I wanted to level up in my business and level up in my capacity to take care of myself, but actually I was so afraid that no one would love me once I got there because there'd be no reason for them to, that I've like kept myself really small. And like allowing myself to grieve through that process has been so empowering. And like, oh wow, yeah, no, I don't want to stay small to be rescued. Like let's learn to take care of ourselves. And this is where I'm saying, like, we need to intellectually, like, not just acknowledge that, oh yeah, I want to like create more abundance or wealth in my life. Like intellectually, that's great, but like emotionally, why haven't I? What's holding me back? Oh, I have these beliefs about like what it will mean if I make enough to really be sufficient and thrive. Alyssa, I feel like you were like, oh my gosh, I know that story. Like, I feel like when I told you about that, you were like, yes.
Totally. And I've really been I listened to a podcast a couple months ago and I've been reflecting on it since about there's like this biological thing that happens when we play into being a victim. Victims get more support. Victims get help from other people. That when we can stay a victim, somebody's gonna come and change your oil for you or fix your flat tire, do all these things that when you release being a victim and you take your power back, who the fuck has your back? That's a big, scary leap. But actually, the truth isn't like I have my own back. Nobody's there for me. I'm all I need. Can kind of swing into this opposite direction of a trauma response. But when we can fulfill all of our own needs for the most part, then whatever we ask for and whatever support we receive outside of that, once we've grieved that, other people can't support us, then it's all like a bonus, I guess. You know what I mean? So if you can actually level up and take care of yourself financially, any support from anybody else is just a cherry on top, and you're no longer counting on it or hoping for it, kind of like the Cinderella Disney princess experience that I think a lot of women really struggle with, is like really wanting to stay the cute little princess that's always like, damsel in distress. Oh, I don't have the money, expecting men to pay for everything. This is just victimhood in a different, Disney princess dress, really.
Yeah, and I love that you just identified that, like, wait a minute. I had a complete error-based belief about what love was, right? Like I was walking around being like, oh yeah, yeah, rescue me. That feels like love. That's not love. That's not love. Now, someone might gift me something that is loving, but real love comes from a place of like not trying to manipulate the world to be rescued. And as you put it, like the cherry on top, like you just actually receive the gift of love. You're not holding yourself back. And actually, when you become your whole self, when you are self responsible, anything you receive from anyone at that point is just a true gift because you're not needing it. There's no more codependent, like icky exchanges happening because you don't need that from them anymore. So, like, yeah, this was a good one for me to actually identify. But I think what's really cool about it too was that it took me emotionally being willing to like feel into this stuff, because this is where like belief systems are so tricky, is that we can think we want something, and unless we're willing, for me at least, like I have yet to be able to do a lot of these processes just intellectually. I have had to experience them emotionally and be willing to feel the fears and be willing to grieve through what's going on in order to understand my belief system. And that's why I think it's so important to not just teach people about mindset work, but also really tap into emotionally what's going on with us so that we can change our belief systems in its entirety, because it's not just this like thing that happens in our brain. So much of it started when we weren't even very much in our brain, when we were just these emotional children, when we were these energetic little beings that were unfiltered emotionally. And we created all these error-based beliefs about the world and about who we were. And so unless we're willing to go back to those places energetically, we're going to be stuck trying to just do the adult thing, which is use our brain. And I mean, that in and of itself is so damaging. And that's what's so cool about looking at our belief systems as both an intellectual and an energetically based created system. Okay, I have another one that I found really fascinating that has held me back financially and even, I guess, work-wise. And I'll be interested to hear, Alyssa, what you think about this one. Is that I have been hesitant to once again grow a lot independently in self-responsibility, because it would potentially push a partner away, and this is kind of exactly what you're talking about, but like push a partner away because A, I wouldn't have enough time for them. Like I had this air-based belief that if I worked really hard, if I engaged completely in my work, in my desires, in my passions, in what I wanted to do, maybe even where I wanted to live, where I wanted to go, how I wanted to do things, if I was just focusing on my desires, I would, for some reason, this is my belief, I would not create space for another human. Like I needed to always leave room, like in my schedule or like in my plans for this other person to show up because I truly believed that like there's no way they could just actually align with my desires and my passions. Right. And so what did that do? That made me not want to get too big and too full of my desires and my passions. And it's kept me going, well, it's probably better if I actually can like adapt my life to the person that I'm interested in. So like I don't want to get too invested in like what I want to do because I'm gonna have to change it anyways because the guy for me, because I'm like interested in dating a man, right? The guy is gonna be the one that has like the big career and like stuff going on. So I need to be able to adapt to him. Like no way is he gonna adapt to me or like let alone meet me in the middle. Goodness no, you know. And so, like, once again, I've held myself back because I want deeply to have a partner and I want to be in partnership with someone. And like, we could even go further and think, oh, that's because I'm afraid of loneliness. So, like, actually, I need to grieve being lonely. Like, there's so many layers here, right? But nonetheless, it's so fascinating how I believed that a partner wouldn't want to actually just meet me in the middle and really honor what I want to do and like allow myself to be as big as I can be and actually find someone that's capable of meeting me there. So I've once again kept myself small in order to never be lonely and to find a partner. Like all of these like what? This is ridiculous. This is so silly. Like I can't believe that I've been holding myself back, but it really took investigating what my beliefs were to go, "Oh, there's a lot of error here." You know?
Yeah, and I think there's also this similar interesting phenomenon of dating people that maybe aren't as emotionally available, or like they're at a different place as us, but we end up finding this like in the moment, it's like a perfect energetic match. But we can be attracted to dating people that aren't as available to process things in the way that we want to process them, because it it's it's keeping us where we're at. So if the limiting belief is I don't want to rise to that full potential yet because I'm afraid that it won't make me available to dating, so then we can be trying to date a completely different caliber of person that's on a different level, not better or worse, right? Like nothing's necessarily better or worse, but just slightly out of alignment with our true soul desire to really expand and be this powerhouse business person or like rich whatever, that we can like lower ourselves down to dating somebody that like can keep us there. You know what I mean? So instead of like actually rising to our full potential, maybe that other person rises with us. Maybe, like you said, they can like meet us where we're at in our schedule. Maybe they are busier in their schedule doing what they love, and you can come together and there can be collaboration and harmony. But we don't know unless we're going to take that leap and keep working through those beliefs and really be that person that we are desiring to be, right? To like go through the emotional process of like, okay, you know what if I do grow out of this relationship or out of this person? And I think so many people have that fear of taking big leaps, because what if we outgrow our current partner or friend group or whoever? But the truth is they either are going to rise with you and be inspired and empowered with you, or you leave them behind, but you're not gonna you'll grieve that process, but you're not going to entirely miss them because you're already going to be in a different space that's more aligned and authentic for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, everything you just said, and even if you look at kind of the basis of the beliefs that we've been talking about, so much of our belief system is based on wanting to continue to be loved, right? Like, if I am not rescuable, I won't feel love. If I am no longer a victim, no one will show up and rescue me. If I am too independent, There's no reason for anyone to come love me. Now, the thing is all of those examples are actually codependent, icky, not real love scenarios anyways. But our belief system is in error. We don't necessarily have the universal truth about love within us because we weren't treated with universal unconditional love early enough in life to create these things. So yeah, we're going around trying to be loved and create love in our lives in ways that are totally based in error. And we need to be willing to challenge them. And we need to be willing to like actually look at ourselves and go, gosh, what am I believing here about this situation? If I grow big and like do big things in my life and I'm afraid of losing people because of that, is that real love anyways? Like, goodness gracious, no, not at all. But
Nope.
but isn't it fascinating how all these things translate into like money too? Like our capacity to take care of ourselves, our capacity to like generate abundance. We are afraid that doing those things will make us unlovable. And if that's the
Hmm.
case, then it's not real love. But we have to be willing to challenge our belief system to get out of those bad habits or those negative habits.
Totally. And I want to like tie in like this is from our experience in like the feminine essence, right? Of like, well, nobody will be able to rescue me. But I see the opposite or like inverse money trauma for the masculine people that are feeling like, oh, I have to have this much money to provide for, the feminine or whatever. And these are just relatively like heteronormative ideas. But the whole concept of like the man or the masculine person in the relationship has to have the money to provide for the feminine. And we're over here like, oh, okay, like I'm working through feeling worthy of being able to provide. You know what I mean? Where they have to work through the opposite of I have to work through maybe I can't provide in the way that society is telling me that I have to be able to provide, right? So then there's like this whole, convoluted, we all have our money trauma and it's showing up in the same way that we relate in love of am I worthy of love if I don't make enough money or if I make too much money or whatever it is, or how if we work too hard or if we don't work enough or if we want to be the stay-at-home parent or if we, have whatever it is. I just wanted to speak to that because these are like relatively, I guess, gendered ideas of, oh, poor me, like the feminine, wounded feminine victim with money, or and then like the toxic masculinity of like must provide, must be the breadwinner, must take care, How
Yeah,
does that feel for you?
absolutely. Yeah, no, no, absolutely. When we're like, I mean, the uniquenesses between the masculine and feminine energies are so beautiful and they're so cool to identify and see. But like when it comes down to human relations, we are so both people in any relationship are going to have big parts of them as masculine and feminine. And these things are um we can't play into these roles that have existed for a long time because I think we will start identifying, if we haven't already, that there's so much error and so much unloving, agreement creating, codependency creating problems that until we're willing to really challenge them and actually, like, we're all playing with these concepts of sacred feminine, divine masculine, sacred masculine. And I think we're getting there. But like the giving and receiving, the expanding and contracting, like all of these yin and yang parts to us are still being developed because we're living in so much error. We need to be willing to understand that like, whoa, a lot of this stuff is not truly loving that we're living in these gender roles with. So I do love that. And it is interesting, you and I have similar feminine issues with money and like how to show up in a relationship, and receive love in the feminine, like what it would look like to be rescued and to be small, and how that feels like a place in which you can receive more love. But obviously that's so far from the truth intellectually. We just need to go back and heal our wounds that taught us that so that we're not acting from that place. And yeah, man, it would be great to have a guy on here right now and understand a little bit more of his masculine wounds about money. But we can only kind of make an assumption of there being, yeah, like maybe more of the provider and needing to provide and needing, and then like actually it's interesting because there's a part of me that feels like if I don't let the man do that, like if I am not small enough to let him rescue me, he's not going to be interested in me anyways, right? Like
Yeah.
he's gonna want to fulfill that role. He's gonna want to show up. And like there's a part of the divine masculine that I think is very supportive, right? They're that like constant, there's the constant stability, maintenance essence of divine masculinity. But it would show up as that gift we were talking about, not because
Hmm.
I wasn't able to also just take care of myself, you know? So it is really fascinating. And I love that we've gotten into kind of a masculine feminine discussion here when
Hmm.
we're focusing on belief systems. But it is so true that like our beliefs about who we're supposed to be do fall into gender roles a lot. And there's a lot of error in all of that. Definitely.
Totally. And I think it comes up for both of us around belief systems because you and I are both like very balanced, I would say, in our masculine and feminine in the way that we kind of dance in the world. So as we're like relating and working through these belief systems, we have to find partners that are also doing that tango, right? So when it comes to money, can the more masculine provider person in a relationship actually ask for help and support? And can the feminine rise to the occasion and be like, yes, I can offer support. Um, or like know that they're capable of offering support. And there's so much of this weird, I consider it toxic perception around like the feminine and the masculine has to show up in this way and the feminine needs to be safe and supported, etc. But they're missing the boat around these are all just still belief systems. Like you said, these are just they don't have to be universal truths. We can work through these and be like, all right, like I can be a provider. I can be out earning my spouse or partner. I can rise to the occasion and still be worthy of love and still be able to create, the romantic life that I'm seeking. So I think that's what the thread that kind of ties all of this back together.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, so I feel like potentially now that we've kind of cracked the egg open on belief systems and talking about how we have these beliefs that we think we want to make a lot of money, we think we want to have a really big successful business, we think we want to um yeah, fill our schedules with all the things that we want to do. And then we look around and go, well, I haven't created that. So there must be something else going on. What are my actual beliefs and desires then about that thing? And then it was like, oh, holy crap, I have so many reasons why I don't want to do that because I'm so afraid that it will make me unlovable, basically. And so until we're willing to do that, we're going to be stuck in these patterns where we don't create what we think we want, even though deep down it is exactly what we want. Like not having enough money and being rescued for a long time felt like now that I can look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what I wanted. Of course it was. It was so much easier and it felt like, oh, okay, great. I'm being taken care of. How lovely. Now, of course, I'm like actually not wanting that. So the belief is being revealed and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't want this at all in my life. Like let's clean this up. Let's move on. But like now that we've cracked open this conversation, I think we might need to have a conversation about experimentation and like challenging these belief systems a little bit more because that's part
Hmm.
of the work, right? It's not just about doing the emotional and intellectual awareness of it. The next step is actually stepping out into the world and acting upon them. And I think that maybe the next conversation we have is about experimentation with that and how once we identify an error-based belief, we need to challenge it and we need to work through it and take ownership of it. And one of the best ways to do that is by going out in the world and creating new events and challenging it in active ways, be it emotionally and like physically, just like going out and doing cool stuff. So I don't know. I'm feeling another conversation coming up between you and I, Alyssa, potentially about experimentation. What do you think?
Definitely. Can't wait.
Yeah, me either. Cool. Is there anything else you want to really talk about with the belief system stuff?
Ah, I think we just have to have the courage to really lean into and take responsibility for the beliefs that we have, because oftentimes we don't really want to admit that we believe that we're whatever, unworthy of love or addicted to being broke or whatever. Um, we spiritually bypass or skip over all the hard work with belief systems. And we try to put positive affirmations over it and like put little post-it notes on our mirror that say, I am worthy of love and belonging. But we don't want to lean into the fact that we genuinely don't feel like we deserve love and belonging.
Yeah.
So, that being said, have a good cry.
So true. Okay, wait, actually, that makes me think of one more quick thing. This is one of my favorite things with my clients when I'm working with clients is that I challenge them and sometimes I can feel them like squirming and getting so like almost annoyed with me. And I think it's so funny because I'm like, no, 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 no. You've created this. We need to find your air-based truth. We need to find the reason you have created this. And they're looking at me going, I did not create this. This is not what I wanted in my life. And I'm like, I know, I get it. Intellectually, that's what you think, but we need to look at your belief system and see why there is something under here that has created it. And it blows my mind. I know it blows theirs too, but like it's so cool to sit there and work with someone and work through it and then get to a point where they go, oh, holy crap. Yeah, I mean, I do value that more, or I did want that more. And like, I did create that because, whoa, I was actually hoping for this result instead. And when you can do that, you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, finally, I have something to like start out doing something different with now. Like, I can actually identify why I created this thing in my life. So, yeah, I really encourage everyone to actually take some serious ownership, like you were saying, of what we've all created in our lives and be willing to get curious because we don't have to beat ourselves up, but we have to just be willing to get really curious. Like, why am I creating this lack of money, this lack of business, this lack of like the things that I desire in my life? Why are you creating that? Because there are going to be some very real beliefs and desires underneath there that are stopping you from creating those things. And I think it's really important to be willing to go there and like test that out. Um, yeah, pretty cool stuff.
We love it.
Love it so much. Okay, I once again am feeling really complete about this conversation. How about you?
Me too. Perfect.
Cool. Awesome. And once again, this just makes me think more about these cool workshops that I have coming up because literally I'm going to be talking with everyone about their belief systems and we're going to be looking at our beliefs and then giving everyone a really practical way to work through a couple beliefs that or at least pursuing some desires and looking at what the beliefs are that are stopping people from it. So yeah, so I've got some in-person workshops coming up in the Pacific Northwest throughout the next of the year, the rest of this year and into next year. So keep posted. I've got those on my website. I will put information about that in the links, or I guess in the notes below, and then also how you can get in touch with Alyssa too to keep having this conversation if you are interested. Much love, and yeah, we'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mwah. See you later.